Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Death by Disney podcast. I'm your host, Adam. Bah! And today we're going to talk about 1957's Old Yeller. And yeah, it is that movie that you are thinking about. It's the story of a man. Well, it's the story of two boys, and one boy adopts a dog and comes to love the dog a lot, and unfortunately, the dog dies. How did I feel about this movie? I gave it a 10 out of 10. The movie stars Dorothy McGuire, Fess Parker, and Tommy Kirk. I had never seen the film before, but I certainly know the story. How can one grow up in North America and not know the story of Old Yeller? If you take out the long introduction song and the end credits, this would be a movie which would stand up today. And those two things are, in my opinion, its only flaws. The writing is quite well done, and the directing is excellent. The film centers around a pair of brothers bond with a dog. In a lot of Disney films, the child acting is rather wooden and idealized, but not in this film. Ellis, the younger brother, acts like a whiny younger brother and often doesn't understand the border between reality and imagination. But the family realizes this and that he seems to be a sensitive soul and are understanding about it. The older brother, Travis, is trying to replace an absent father, but he is thrown into a circumstance which is beyond his emotional maturity. There's a great scene after Travis has buried the dog where he's talking to his father, and he's just emotionally devastated by what he had to do. And his father says a lot of things which are emotional platitudes, but he also seems to understand the pain that his son is going through. It's a really well written and acted and directed scene. Another great moment of acting and directing and writing is in the scene where Travis thinks Old Yeller might have rabies, and the dog is in quarantine and starts to growl at him like a mad dog. There's a close up of the boy's face, and you can just see a mountain of pain in it. If you've never seen this film and you've been avoiding it because you know what happens in the movie, I would suggest still watching it. It's one of the best movies about the bond between a person and their dog. It kind of reminds me of Marley and Me, and while that is a great story, this one is a much better one. So I really liked it, and during this podcast, I like to give you some education and give you a bit of trivia. There isn't much about this movie. The one thing that might be a bit interesting is the term hydrophobia. Hydrophobia means rabies. So I guess, not that I know, luckily, but I guess if you are infected by the rabies virus, you don't want anything to do with water for some reason. So that was the name of rabies back then. So I also want to make this podcast fair and balanced criticism. So what I do is I read a positive review and a negative review, and then I actually give you my opinion and I interact with those positive and negative reviews. So let's talk about the negative one first. 1 out of 10, not worth watching. This movie is a disgrace to all Disney movies, which aren't very good in the first place. I remember first watching it when I was almost 4 and loving it, but after watching it this morning, I almost wanted to catch hydrophobia and be shot. First of all, Kevin Cochran playing Arliss is one of the worst child actors out there, alongside Tommy Kirk, of course, who played the older brother. The characters created in the book were destroyed as they were turned into unconvincing snobs by these downright terrible actors. I wasn't convinced that any people in the movie were actually in old Western times, and Arliss's squeaky accent didn't help with the illusion. I wouldn't bother watching it if I wasn't an adult who was already convinced that Old Yeller is a classic. But I sure wish I could have been there when they first called it a classic. The only good part or character was Mr. Cersei, who added comedy about the son's illnesses or death, which I was definitely hoping would happen. Well, and that is from H. Harry, I guess, from 2008. And there's a lot to unpack there. He says that he doesn't like all Disney movies, or she doesn't like all Disney movies. And of course, there are good Disney movies and bad Disney movies, but to say that you don't like all Disney movies, that's 80 years of history, over 80 years of history now. So that's hundreds, maybe even 1,000 movies. So to say that you don't like all of them, that's a that's a wild stretch. And I think, as I said, that they actually do a good job of being children, those actors. And they, as I said before, Disney does have this problem with their child actors, especially at this era, that they were like, too stiff and not realistic. And in this movie, they are very realistic. They do have personalities. They are different. Um, and about if it's convincing portrayal of the Old West, I would say no, but this was at the time when Westerns were really, really popular. So I don't think any of those films, probably some of them are classic films, but I don't think any of them would be an accurate portrayal of the Old West, right? Usually these films don't have many people of color. It's just white people and Indians. And as far as I know, most of the, maybe not most, but there were a lot of black cowboys, which you don't really see in movies like that. So no Western of this time is going to be accurate. Okay, so that was negative, and clearly I disagreed because I do like this movie. Let's talk about a positive review. This is 10 out of 10. Tissues needed. When I have a hint of the story behind the movie, I put before me a number of toilet paper rolls. In this case, I needed more. I have mentioned that before. Dolphins, horses, and dogs are the proof of God's existence. So, and yeah, that is from Jay Bournelos, from 2022. So how big are these toilet paper rolls that this person is using? Um, I understand. I did cry a little bit when watching this movie, and if you don't cry, it's okay. But if you cry during this movie, it's definitely okay as well. I just because I don't know where I'm from, toilet rolls are relatively big. Maybe you're using super small ones, so to use all of them when you cry, that seems excessive. And about saying that dolphins are proof of God's existence, I would say that dolphins are proof that God doesn't exist. Because dolphins are super intelligent people, super intelligent creatures, and they are just as violent as people are. And they do a bunch of horrible things that people do as well. Dogs maybe are the best proof of God's existence because a dog can bite you, but dogs will unconditionally love you no matter what you do to them, which is scary. And it makes me sad for dogs. All right, what do you think about this movie? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Please leave a comment below what you thought about Old Yeller.